It was 11 p.m. on a Friday. I had just come back from an 8-hour day at medical school. The kind where you study so hard, your eyes stop focusing. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of my bed, and I noticed something. I had been out running for months. The silence in my room was louder than anything I had heard all week. And in that silence, a thought I had no business having crawled out of me. What is the point of all this if nothing is actually happening to me? I had done everything right: the grades, the acceptance, the white coat. On paper, I was winning, but sitting on that bed, I realized you can build the exact life you were told to want and still feel like a stranger inside it. And that is when it hit me. You're not tired because life is hard. You're tired because it's empty. Not empty in the dramatic sense. No tragedy, no catastrophe. Just the quiet kind of emptiness that comes from repeating the days where you wake up and the first thing you do is reach for your phone. You check what everyone else is doing. You scroll, you compare, you numb yourself and call it rest. Then you go live the same day again and again and again with the same routes, the same conversations, the same safe choices until the weeks start collapsing into one long blur. And at night, when the noise is finally gone and there's nothing left to distract you, you feel it. That quiet panic, not the fear of failure, but rather the fear of never beginning. Because deep down, beneath all the noise and all the performance and all the waiting, you know you're not built to merely exist. You're built to leave something behind. Something that proves you were here. Something that gives your days weight. Something worthy of the life you were given. And that is why the question that aches your soul refuses to leave you alone. But how could I live and have no story to tell? As you've lived the kind of life that looks normal while it's happening, then feels unbearable when you finally notice you're not really existing. You watch, you refresh, you absorb. Every day you become better at reacting and worse at creating. For every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world, and a screen can make that field of vision feel like reality itself. Thus, you may not recognize it, but quietly, the world shrinks to whatever you keep consuming. And at first, you call it restlessness. Then you say I'm stressed. Then you say I'm burnt out. But the drive to create and exist did not vanish. Rather, when it is blocked, the energy does not disappear. It turns inwards, manifesting as depression, resentment, or psychosomatic illness. That is why you can sleep and still wake up exhausted. That is why you can be surrounded and still feel empty. That is why you can feel resentment toward people who are simply doing what you keep postponing. As it is you who fails to realize that an unexamined life is not worth living. And despite the debt you owe the life you have failed to live, you cannot move forward without first accepting it. In truth, nothing really exists without indebtedness. And only when you can bear this cost can you create. For the person without indebtedness, who renounces the world and refuses to pay life's dues, does not individuate, because the darkness would find no place in him. As the greatest sin is to be an unfinished thought. And what will change you is not motivation, but pursuing what brings you joy, not as an escape, but rather as a craft. You must choose your direction, then continue to show up and to pursue your art until the days begin to agree with your words. For it is creation that is the antidote to your numbness, as your existence itself demands your craftsmanship. You must pursue the life you fantasize of, the art that makes you whole. For the best way to bring your unconscious to light is to create. Create something greater than you. Work for it and pursue it with everything in your disposal. Live it as if you were in it, as you cannot continue to escape it. For it is not the artist alone who owes all that is greatest in their life to fantasy and imagination, as it is art and emotion that intensifies your experience. And to do so, you must remain coherent to your pursuit. However, your coherence will make you stand out. In the crowds full of the mundane and shapeless, you alone will give it shape. But when you begin that process, you'll need the courage to stand out and not conform, as it is in this resistance where the beauty you seek will emerge. For no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. And remember, it is the privilege of your existence and your God-given right to become who you truly are. However, to bring that composition, it rarely looks normal while it is happening. For those who are seen dancing are thought to be gripped by insanity, by those who cannot hear the music. Thus, go to encounter for the millionth time the reality you experience and forge in the smithy of your soul the uncreated conscious of your existence. You must be the form in which your meaning seeks manifestation, as it is your art and your art alone that will impose limits on chaos. So if you you ask me what I came to do in this world, I, an artist, will answer you. I am here to live out loud, and your internal battle to master the self is your greatest art. You're not a static thing that acts, rather, you're the necessary action itself. Your heart being the sanctuary, where it all begins, as it is in the heart that the soul recognizes the divine attribute. So do not be satisfied by the stories others say about you. Unfold your own myth, but you will not get there through contemplation alone. For knowledge without action is madness, and action without knowledge is void. Move forward and seek friction, for it is in that friction that the spark of the self resides. You must no longer let yourself sit and wait, as the manifestation of beauty is a moral obligation of the conscious mind, and it is your moral obligation to pursue the artistic task, one where you no longer let the world shape you, but rather one where you deliberately shape reality in a manner that brings the beauty of God upon earth. For the self is not given to you to lose it to the folly and delusion of this world. Rather, there is only one consequence you must pursue. You must create yourself into a work of art. You must take what you repress and sublimate it into the life your creative work craves. You must struggle to bring this into fruition and continue the struggle until your soul feels satisfied. For the struggle to create is enough to fill a man's heart. As an artist never really finishes his work, he merely abandons it. And finally, everything I have shared with you, the unexamined life, the pursuit of art, the divine spark within you, all of it points to the same truth I found lying on that bed on a Friday night. The emptiness itself was not the problem. Rather, the emptiness was an invitation. It was pointing me towards the camera, towards these videos, towards the version of myself I had not yet had the courage to build. As to me, medicine alone was not enough. Studying alone was not enough. It was only when I began to create imperfectly, inconsistently, stumbling forward, that life began to move again. And a direction emerged. The days finally started to mean something. And despite that, I still feel that emptiness on the weeks I don't create. But I know now what it is. It is not a signal that something is wrong. It is a signal that something is waiting. And it is waiting for you too. That is why you must pay dearly for the divine gift of a creative fire. And yet, it is a risk you must be willing to take. Your life must become a work of art that is never satisfied with its proportions. Your creative act requires the courage to let go of certainties and to trust that God will be there to guide you through it all. And you must dare to do so, and thus dare to create, for it is in your creativity that you feel the most alive. So pursue creativity, one where you contemplate on the night and day as signs, for it is a great and rare act. The world was created to inspire you, to connect you to something greater, and perhaps there is, after all, something to the idea that one chooses one's life before birth. As you may harbor a desire for something during your life that calls to an adventure grander than what you thought possible. For what strikes your soul is the fact that in our society, art has become something which is related only to objects and not to God. And in that truth will you discover that you can only give value to your existence by behaving as if your existence were a work of art.